Okay, so now after we've done our triangulating and checked our face norms, we now need to go through making sure we know what size this is so that before we send this to the printer, we have it sized, okay? So in order to do that, we are going to go to displays. I'm sorry, we're going to go to Windows. We're going to go to setting preferences and preferences. Now we're going here because we need to know what units we are going to be in. I need to know what units I'm measuring. So now that I have a pop-up window preferences, here's that preference window just to make sure you can see it. I'm going to go to settings. Okay. And when I go to settings, I'm looking for working units. And I see that by default, Maya sets up our units as the metric system as centimeters. Okay. I personally prefer to use imperial because that's what I tend to use. One is not better than the other. It just depends on what you like. But with that knowledge, one, I know what system I'm in. If I wanted to keep it in centimeters, I could. I believe the 3D printer prefers millimeters or units. Okay, so I'm going to stay in units, but here is where I make those changes. And I'm making those changes, and then I'm going to hit save. Now, once I hit save, I'm back at the main stage. And I know that I will be measuring in units now, and what units I'll be measuring in. In my case, they will be inches, which I recommend if you're comfortable with inches. If you're comfortable with metric, then use millimeters. Okay. But now I actually have to measure. So to do that, I'm going to go to modify, um, transform tools, and universal manipulator. So I want to make sure that you see that. Okay, so I'm holding it here. You can take a picture of it. You can write it down just so that you know where it is. Okay, and I have to select the object. So once I have the object selected, I can see, if I scroll in, I can see the numbers, right? So in fact, this distance here is a little bit more than half an inch, right? So this is a small model. Um, I'm going to look at it here. So again, the distance from this top to this bottom is 2.956 inches. I might want to round it off to 3. So I can click on it and type in 3 and hit return. Okay. Now I'm going to make sure I'm in object mode, and I'm going to go back to that and go to modify, transform tools, and universal manipulator because I want to make sure that that has changed. I also want to check, so I know my height and I know my width. My width right now, again, is a little bit more than half an inch, and I have to decide, do I really want to keep it that thin, right? So everything is going to be changed proportionately. Okay, so I might want to come here and say, you know what, instead of it being a half an inch or a little bit more than a half an inch, I'm going to go ahead and click on it and make it an inch. Okay, then I'm going to come to my width. My width that spans, I'll come up here, arm's length is about 3.5, a little bit more than 3.5 inches, and that's fine with me. And my height is 3. Okay, so now I have something that's a little bit wider. Okay, um, that's a little bit wider than what it initially was. And if I'm happy with that, I can stay right where I am. Okay, so now I have it measured. So we have to really be careful with these measurements to make sure that I'm getting the size I want. If I wanted this to stay proportionate, I would probably use the scale tool to keep it in proportion. Okay, because right now I've changed the proportions. Okay, if I change it to 1 inch width, and you can even see if you look at the model now, how this model is in fact thicker than this model, okay? Because the way I've changed it. I can also change it and make it a little bit bigger, so that the sides will be, I'm gonna click back on the universal tool. And I can see here that I can make the width a little bit wider, okay? So I want you to pay attention to the size because I want to make sure that it's a size you're comfortable with. I don't really recommend that you print more than 6 inches in any direction, okay? Especially for your first print, okay? So the max I would recommend at this time is 6 inches square on meaning length, width, and depth. So take a look at your model and make sure that you're happy with it. The next thing I'm going to cover is exporting your files as STL files. I'll see you in the next video.